right, we're live. Hello, relatives. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a reading again out of the Meditation with the Native American Elders book. My name is Michael. If you're new to my channel, I want to say Dayan, Yahi, welcome um, to my channel. I'm from the Ihonkuan people, the Yankton people. And I'm going to go ahead and do a reading today. Just want to ask if you're new to the channel as well, that you like and subscribe and support the channel, maybe by sharing it with other people. I've been doing this now out of uh, literature from Native Americans, Indigenous people, but in our Lakota and Dakota way, we say Mitakuye Uyasi, which means we are all related. So these are the type of readings that embody um, that type of philosophy. So if you're non-native, I would I believe that you can get just as much out of these readings as if you were native. So I always say welcome to all nationalities, all to everyone, to everyone. So I'll go ahead and do today's reading for today. And again, I have no idea what it's going to say, relatives, none. And by the way, I'm at my mom's, so sometimes you'll see me. I'd like to do some outside a little bit more. Back when I was first started doing these, and I think this is year 8, I would be outside, and you never know where I do one. So I promise to get back to that. But for the time being, I'm gonna go ahead and do it right here at mom's. And the reason why I'm here is that we have a dear loved one that we're supporting. So we're coming together to support a loved one, and our loved one is in a very sacred place where he is, where he's also not only needing that support, but also um, he is giving very strong medicine um, by the way that he lives as well. So here we go, July 19th. Love you, Stace. July 19th. We were taught to believe that the Great Spirit sees and hears everything, and that he never forgets, that hereafter he will give every man a spirit home according to his deserts. If he has been a good man, he will have a good home. If he has been a bad man, he will have a bad home. I cannot hide my true spirit and intent from the Creator. He created a system of justice. This system of justice says we will get back whatever we plant. If I plant good, then good returns. If we plant bad, then we will suffer the consequences. Whatever we think about another person, the same things are thought about us. Whatever we send out is sent back. Man cannot alter this system of justice. It doesn't matter what we say or do. What really matters is what we really, really did. And then there's a brief prayer at the bottom. It says, "O Great Spirit, guide me today to do good, to have good thoughts. Let me remember the things I do are to honor your way of life." So that's a good one. Now there are some things that according to my own personal beliefs, will differ. And some of those readings come from different nations, from different tribes. And so, of course, there are going to be differences. So when you hear me talk about the Great Spirit or God, however, typically sometimes I will use those words just because of at the time I will just use those words for purposes. But now that I have time, usually when I refer to, and in my own belief, and I've heard other elders say this, that we don't know if the Great Spirit is male or female. We don't know that. That is part of the Great Mystery. That's why it's called the Great Mystery. And so typically what you'll hear me say in my own belief and what I know from the elders is I will sometimes refer to creation. I will use those type of words. Creation, meaning symbolically and very much very much encapsulating that philosophy, that way of life of Mitakuye Oyasin. We are all related. So sometimes you'll hear me say the grandmas and grandpas. That's the way I like to think of it. The grandmas and grandpas, when I refer to God or Creator or He, She, that way it is all inclusive. Grandmas and grandpas. And I'm not advocating that you do that, and I'm not advocating against however it is that you believe. I just simply am just going to say that when you hear me say grandmas and grandpas, I am talking about our ancestors that came before us. I'm talking about our ancestors that are here now, because in our spiritual belief, we believe that our relatives still exist, still are here, still have influence, still are alive. We don't know, nobody really knows what comes after that, but we know in our Lakota and Dakota philosophy, and I know, certainly, personal, no doubt in my mind, because past experiences, that this is true. And so I really like it that it talks about um, these type of things, these conversations. These are really healthy conversations, and though there can be some disagreements, they are just conversations to me that really make a difference in my life, because they really prioritize the non-material. They really put me in a place where, as I start my day or I begin my day, I bring that type of philosophy and that type of thinking and that type of way into my decision making today. Into my, it's like a spark. That fire, that flame is already in there. And it's just like a whole new day. It's like, we're, this is like allowing these type of readings and this type of philosophies to sort of align itself with the light of life, with the light of all creation, with the light of each, with the light that resides inside of you. And it's more than just a little flame, but sometimes it kind of feels like that way when you're just getting up, and then you're just getting started, and then you go to the TV and you start to do your routine, and sometimes it's difficult to feel really motivated for the day. Sometimes it's just really, really hard, and sometimes it's just where we're in a place where we don't feel motivated for the day. We don't feel motivated for the day, and but on the core of whatever it is, whatever it is now, a day is up for debate. What makes a day? Because in our philosophy, we know that, hey, we can be having a bad day all day today, but we can start our day at any time. We can restart philosophically, emotionally, mentally, and sort of spiritually as well. Because if you're working, if you work the graveyard shift and you're a night owl, your day might start at 11 p.m. So that's up to you if you decide, however it is that your spirit decides today, that how you want to get started. Now, the reading described about doing good things and about doing bad things. And that's really important, because for me, I've come a long way in my own life, whereas I didn't think these type of teachings and readings applied to me, because simply I didn't believe that I was I lived within that spiritual cycle. I really felt like an outcast. I really had this feeling inside of me that was put there by other people, by belief systems from outsiders. And so that was something that I picked up. And I took that as how I felt about myself. And that really was misinformation. That was definitely misinformation, and because it was false information. It didn't line up with the reality of that we are all related and everybody is of value. No one person is unimportant. No one person is more important than the next person. So that's what brought imbalance into my life, and I didn't even really know it. But nonetheless, that's the way that I saw life. And now that I look back on it now, and now because of new teachings and the the empowering feeling of being able to say those teachings aren't mine. They're they're within me. They're within my mind. They're a part of me, and they have been a part of me. And look what happens when I took them on, and then I believed them. And look what kind of perspective and world and environment that it created. And I didn't like that. It didn't line up with how I felt like it should be. And so I said, nope, sorry, you've been a part of my life, but you're no longer going to be a part of my life. I am breaking up with you. We're going to be separate now. And I realize now that that is out of harmony belief and thinking. And so there was a bad, and then there was a good. And so that's what the readings always talk about, is that we have to acknowledge both within us. Now that may not be your way of life, and so there might be some type of disagreement. There might be, and that's all right. Whatever works for you, whatever works for whomever. I'm pretty much of the belief that I've needed to do that for a long time, and that once that happened, that something was going to change in my life, and it certainly did. And so I was under the belief, and I still agree with that, but I also have to acknowledge that many of our people aren't at a place where they feel that way, and it isn't their fault. Because if you look at historically speaking, and if you're non-native, you might be able to relate. In fact, I know that there are many of our non-native relatives out there that can relate to that, because you just weren't taught that. You were taught you got to be a good boy, you got to be a good girl, and if you're not, then that means that you're bad. And so that type of thinking and philosophy can really mess with you, can really make you feel, and it can really make you go in the wrong direction. Um, and it can really make you feel about this tall, right? And meanwhile, everybody's standing tall, everybody's having a good life, and you want a good life, but you've been given misinformation, and you developed your outlook on life and your outlook and your self-image based on that information. So I'm thankful that I have new information, and I've just like clothes that go very deep. And I said that I took on that identity, and what you taught me, I really believed it. And now, guess what? And I realized that it no longer served for the benefit of this Mitakuye Oyasin philosophy. I wasn't meant to be separate. We weren't meant to be separated. I wasn't meant to be defined by what you believe that I should be like. And back then, you couldn't have long hair. Oops, my hair is in a man bun right now. Back then, you couldn't be the way that Creator, the grandmas, grandpas, the Great Spirit, creation made you to believe. And so it was quite a journey for our people, quite a journey for our Kyoshbae, quite a journey for our family, quite a journey for myself. And so if you're on that journey, you might come to a point where you realize that, hey, what I learned, it wasn't right. What I learned was incorrect. And because it was incorrect, it was out of harmony with what spirituality is. And since I'm a spiritual being, first and foremost. I'm a spiritual being. First and foremost, I am made of spirit. That's it. I'm made of spirit. I know it. Okay? And some people, they might have doubts about that, but you know, that's why we bring people to these talking circles. We want everybody, whether you're non-native or whether you had different experiences, but it was kind of the same. That's why you're invited to this circle. That's why you have a place around this sacred fire that we're created, of the safety of the spiritual and sacred circle of Mitakuye Oyasin, of in harmony. Because we know we're going to be out of harmony. We know that. I mean, I'm going to go out into this day and nobody's perfect, and there are going to be things that happen that are going to take me out of harmony. But when we talk about out of harmony, we're talking about using them as lessons that are necessary lessons. And so, since we've been misinformed to view that type of behavior as good and bad, then we typically start to label ourselves as either or. And what that usually means is that we're constantly within conflict. Now, conflict is necessary, but we're using language to describe sacred beings. Sacred beings. And we wouldn't use that type of behavior in that type of language to describe, what if there was a bunch of little rabbits over here, okay? Little bitty bunnies. And there was a mama bunny, and there was a papa bunny, and there was a little litter of bunnies. Would you describe those baby bunnies as bad? No, because there would be you could, but would you use different language? Like, that one's a rascal, that one's misbehaving, that one's got a little bit different. We would use different language. We would use less damaging language. We would use more forgiving language, because we would be in harmony with, we see youngsters, we see a family, and we know what it's like. We know what it's like to give that type of leeway and space for those grandchildren to find their own path, to misbehave. The road of life isn't meant for you to walk like you're walking a straight line, and if you make a mistake, then you're good or bad. It's not supposed to be that way. The road of life is so wide that these things that are put in front of you are meant to teach you, are meant to develop endurance, to challenge you, for you to fall down. Because while you're falling down, you have to learn how to get up. And while you're falling down, you have to learn how to reach up and let somebody help you. While you're falling down, you have to then learn what it's like to need that type of help. And then in a traditional sense, that's the way that our Tioshbais work. And then something happened, and then new information came in with those occurrences, and we became out of harmony. And so it's really important to realize that, because when we realize that, and typically what we've been taught usually is when we realize something, we automatically start firing away with this toxic judgmentalism that we're taught, and we've been misinformed because of this out of harmony-ness that has occurred. And so when we're in harmony, then we think of ourselves as grandchildren. We see other people as relatives. I see you as a relative. I see you as a grandchild. And I not only see you, I see those rabbits as grandchildren. I see even the parents of those rabbits as grandchildren. I might even see that rabbit as a grandpa. I might even see the son as a relative. I might even see a coyote as a grandma. So your spirit can really speak to you in such a way And when that discussion starts to happen, and you start to use new language that and throw away the old language and you become start to be restructured and redefined, and those type of languages will start to leave you. You'll start to evaluate yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give that up. It's just like taking on a new nutrition system. You're like, you know what, as much as I love pizza, it's not good for me. My doctor's telling me, I know it. And so I might just limit it to maybe one time a month or one time a week, or I'm going to cut back, but something has to replace that. And what typically is something that is very positive to replace that is something what your own soul and your own spirit will help you with. The grandmas and grandpas will help you determine what you no longer need and what can help, but also what is going to be good for you. And so now, because of that, and when you acknowledge that, you're becoming in harmony with the seen world, meaning what you're seeing now. I have a black shirt on, right? I have a medicine bag. I have my glasses. I have my headphones. That's what you're seeing. But there's also an unseen world, and the unseen world is not just the subconscious, which is very important to talk about, but also the spirit. The spirit, the unseen world is, in religions they sometimes talk about and use words, and these are good words to use. They talk about God is everywhere. The grandmas and grandpas are everywhere. Relatives are everywhere. There isn't a place where they're not. And so when we start to do that, our thinking starts to become in harmony. And now when we start to be like that, now we start to see ourselves differently. We start to bring understanding, compassion, patience when we're starting to look within ourselves deeply, because that's the way that it's supposed to be, because that is in our harmony, and that will make you feel differently. You'll start to feel differently when you start to look at yourself and when you start to look at other people. Now, it's really challenging these days because we do have a lot of politically things going on. Of course, politically affects us all the way down the line. And it affects our elders, it affects our children, it affects us, because we are interconnected. So what affects the children is going to affect me because of that philosophy of Mitakuye Oyasin. It's going to affect me because it affects the elders, because of that philosophy of Mitakuye Oyasin. And so the language that I use and what they talk about in this is it's good to not only look at the past and the type of person that I was, but also look very deeply, because what you will typically find is that there is a reason why we had a behavior from long ago. There is a reason why we became a personality. There's a reason why we have to go deeper, but we weren't meant to do that on our own, because we weren't brought here on our own. We weren't taught these on our own. And sometimes the things that we were taught want to make us, they make us mad. It's confusing. It makes us kind of want to not be around that particular teachers. And so when we go off into the land, we can do things like make an offering. We can take some water. We can set some water out, set some food out. We can say a prayer. We can offer up some smoke from sage and smudge. We can take our shoes off. We can go sit next to a tree, and we start to feel that interconnectedness. And so when we do that, those relatives from all of creation will help us to honestly look at ourselves in a good way. And so what happens is we start to learn how to do that. We start to learn and sort of look at, you know what, I've been judging myself very harshly. Why? Because that's what I was taught. And since I judged myself harshly, there wasn't balance. Because when there's balance and in harmony, there is also forgiveness. There is also teachings. There is also compassion. There is also patience. That is in harmony thinking. And since I wasn't taught those, I didn't see that in life. And so there's so much room there for forgiveness, compassion, and the grandmas and grandpas all over the place, that they know is what is in harmony thinking. And so though it's necessary and it's very healthy to look at our lives and look at ourselves and make changes, because all of creation changes, all of creation sort of weeds out the or takes out the weeds for the garden, right? The garden of life. But what might be a weed for me may be something that feeds another relative. So in other words, the weed is creation and it is a part of life and it is going to help teach us. But we were taught to look away and to ignore, or worse even yet, is to judge the weeds in our personal garden as good, bad, and there is so much more to life than just good or bad relatives. Man. And so, myself, when I hear that type of reading, a lot of that is religion influence. A lot of that is from a time when we were in harmony, when we were close to all creation, but those times have changed, right? It's different now. And so I appreciate that reading very much because it does come from elders, but it was likely that there was some sort of translation loss from that original language and into English language. So I'm really, and the grandmas and grandpas know that I'm a questioner, that I just don't believe something. If it doesn't sit right, no matter if it's positive or negative, up or down, they know that I'm a questioner. And that is a gift from creation. And so today I have that blessing and that ability to say, maybe that's right. Maybe that fits me. Maybe it doesn't. I have that choice to be able to do that. And that comes from our experience in relationship, came with us when we came from as children, as sacred beings. Remember, we came here as sacred beings, right? That's the Wakanisha, little sacred ones. Waka, sacred. So why would we not be sacred now? Why? Because we were taught that we weren't. So if we brought here as Wakanisha, little sacred ones, why is it that we don't view that ourselves, even though we're 40, 50, 60, 70, 30, 20, 15, because of the misinformation that is out there. Because the human being goes off center. Now that's normal for us to go off center and to go and explore. But some of the explorers did a lot of harm. And so we really do have to ask ourselves, do I consider myself sacred? That's a healthy question to ask. Do I consider myself sacred? Do I consider you sacred? Yes. Yes. Look at that beautiful little child playing. Look at that tree. Look at that fox. Look at that rabbit. Look at the grasses. Look at life. Do I consider that sacred? Yes. So why you think that the grandmas and grandpas would want you running around thinking less of yourself? You think that they would want you running around thinking more of yourself? No. No. So if you've been conditioned and socialized to believe that, there is plenty of time and there is plenty of room for you as a spirit to make that decision and say, what happens in my life? Ask yourself, what happens in my life when I consider myself sacred? What happens in life when I consider you sacred? What happens? How do I feel? What do I do? And then ask yourself, what happens with me when I don't believe that? And you'll see example as that. You can even write it down. You can see example after example after example of if I believe that or if I don't. And that's healthy. That's really good. That can really change you no matter where you're at, and no matter what you're doing, and no matter the type of person that you were, the type of person that you are, the type of person that you want to be, and everything in between. And so I believe that. Now granted, it's harder to believe that about certain people. Oh my gosh. So do I consider myself far from perfect? I'm going to just be real honest. I got a lot of learning to do about that. It's very, very, very difficult. But at one time, I just simply did not believe that about myself. I did not believe that really about this type of language just wasn't a part of my life. And now I insist that it does. And I insist that it stays that way. That I don't veer away from it, because it is very challenging. But we're spiritual beings, relatives. We're spirits. We are spirits. And our spirits are carrying our body, and our spirits are very, very capable, as much as the next person, of change, just like the seasons. And so we can just ask for that. You can sing about it. You can just think about it. You can go somewhere. I always recommend like just thinking about it, because some people, they can't go off out into the land. And so like when we pray, like me and my brother, we pray together. Sometimes I often pray by myself, and sometimes I pray with other people. And even the term prayer has been mistranslated into like some sort of like religious thing, when prayer is, there is no word really for prayer. It was just, anyways, I won't go too far off. But you can do that wherever you're at. And something will happen, and sometimes it might feel very uncomfortable, because that will bring you to an awareness into your thoughts of uncomfortability. Now I'm thinking, man, I have kind of been, I could have made changes, and I have been, misbehaving. I have been away. I do need to make changes, and that can make somebody really uncomfortable and really take a look at their life, and it can seem really, really, really overwhelming, extremely overwhelming, because that's something that wasn't meant for you to do alone. Yes, there are a lot of things, and there are times when we do need to be alone, but since you were created and you were brought into this world as sacred and wakam, right? And there is an interconnectedness. You are never alone. And so part of doing that is that pain and that regret and shame is going to come to you. And that is oftentimes somebody else's, like I said, and it didn't belong to you. But nonetheless, since it became a part of us and what we did, that brings those things to the surface. And we just kind of want to tuck them down and just push them down and say, I'll be all right. And sometimes we don't know, we know deeply inside that we're not all right. And so that brings us to another stage of development. And so were we meant to do that alone? No, we weren't meant to do that alone, because remember, we are in harmony with all of creation. We're surrounded by relatives, by plant nations, by animals. And so what happens is when you have that philosophy of Mitakuye Oyasin, we are all related, and you have that respect and you have that love for all of creation, well, guess what? All of creation has that love for you, has that respect for you, has that patience for you, has that forgiveness for you, has that compassion for you. And it becomes an energy. And so that energy is flowing and will help you, like medicine, when you are at that turning point. And so that will be your opportunity, and that will help you. You'll start to dream differently. Your dreams will try and help you cleanse yourself, purify yourself, that of what you need to be away from, what needs to be cleansed from you. It will help you in your dreams. It will help you because now you're starting that change, just like the sacred seasons and the sacred cycle of life. It will start to work through you. It will start to work. It'll start to work with you. But I just highly encourage that you maintain that energy by doing that type of, by living that philosophy of Mitakuye Oyasin. Will you be able to do it perfectly? No, but each little improvement, each little step, each little baby step, each big step, you'll notice your footprints. When you look back, you'll be able to notice your footprints. You'll be able to say, man, I've come a long ways. You'll start to see yourself differently. You'll be able to look back and you'll be able to look at your memory and see your footprints. And you'll be able to say, oh yeah, that's when I really fell hard. Oh yeah, that's when I really had a good time. And then when you look at the footprints from yesterday, on the day that you decided to become more informed and let go of that misinformation, you'll notice something in your life cycle. That day, something changed. You changed. You'll notice then that all of a sudden you started doing things differently. All of a sudden something changed within. And since something changed within, things started changing outside of yourself. And so that is a part of the life cycle. That is part of seeing yourself as a spirit first. And so, hihani washte, Shelly. Dayan wachi yanka. Dayan wachi yanke low. Good to see you. I'm used to saying Dayan wachi yanka below, which is plural for meaning it's good to see you all, but it is good to see you all. And so I really like that reading. When you have to do that evaluation about your past and about, those parts of you that you're not proud of, just remember to give yourself the patience that a grandpa or a grandma would give a grandchild. When you start to look at your life, just remember who you were when you came into this world. Remember, you were wakam, you were sacred. And then things started to happen that weren't your fault. And things started to happen, and when they happened, Your behavior started to happen, right? It started to change you. And so that is a good time for reflection and to bring creation into that, to bring forgiveness into that, compassion, patience that you would a grandchild, because you are a grandchild, no matter how old you are. And that is where, when real good healing will start to happen for yourself and myself. I'm really picky about what I allow into my space. You know what I'm saying? I've learned now what really, what really is important and really is good for me. And I got a lot of learning to do. Don't get me wrong. I got to stay a learner, definitely. Um, but these type of teachings can be passed on to our next generation, and they will. They will. But at this point in time, um, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that because it's been 40 minutes, going on 41 minutes. I do want to cut this one. I don't want to go too long because then it will turn into. And I do want to. There might be an online talking circle here starting here in a little bit. I might support, but I do want to say thank you for watching. If you'd like to comment, please feel free to comment. If you'd like to like and share, that would be awesome to help this station, to help this channel. Um, and also, if you have any questions or want to, I do in-person speaking events when it comes to culture, and also um, I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and this isn't against any of that. That's not, but I do speak on that level. But I do speak in terms of culture. Um, and I also do like to have conversations with people one to one, and I'm a very experienced talking circle facilitator, but also individual talking circles, one to one visits. So if you'd like to be able to take me out, I want to make that offer. My number is 605 491 0200. 605 491 0200. I hope to expand the YouTube page. I'm not exactly sure how to do that, so I just ask you for your help, and just by subscribing and then sharing the video. I consider myself an upstart when it comes to YouTube, but I've been doing this on Facebook for I think this is year 8, but it's a whole nother thing that I'm trying to get more comfortable with on YouTube, and I hope to continue to do that. And so, relatives, I'm just going to say thank you for keeping it sacred, and by that I mean thank you for being you, thank you for being here, thank you for keeping it sacred, and so I will